Time to finally put UFC 215 to bed here in sleepy Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ariel, Helwani. That is Dave Doyle. We are in this state-of-the-art, brand-new media center, the brand-new Rogers Place in Edmonton, home, of course, of the Edmonton Oilers. You see a ton of Oilers paraphernalia. And, of course, Dave, they call Edmonton the city of champions. Other places like to call their towns the city of champions. At one point, Edmonton was the city of champions as far as the NHL was concerned. We were hoping to see two title fights, two champions in action tonight. We didn't get that in the end. Of course, we know about Demetrius Johnson and Ray Borg falling off the card, but we did get Valentina Shevchenko against Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes ends up retaining her UFC women's bantamweight title. She wins via split decision, a hotly contested fight, a fight that was tough to score. It was close. It is a little controversial. The fans here seem to be a little bit upset. The fans on Twitter are a little bit upset. First things first, how did you score the fight?
I had it for Nunes. I had the first, third, and fifth round for her, and Valentina in the second and fourth. I know there's so much debate about the fifth round. Valentina's pretty hot about it, but so to the people who are saying like, well, what did Nunes do with those takedowns? What did Valentina do in the fifth round? I felt like Nunes had more gas in the tank, that she pushed the pace in the fifth. And to me, I mean, anytime there's a split decision, Twitter's going to rage over the result, but I didn't see a controversy there.
Did you enjoy the fight?
I thought it was a good fight. It was a good fight. Unfortunately, maybe not in front of the right crowd because, it was kind of a long evening, and I'm not going to really dog the crowd because most of the night they were a really good crowd who reacted really well to most of the stuff. But I don't know, maybe their disappointment was coming out over not seeing the original main event, or maybe, Amanda has more of a reputation for exciting fights and they were expecting it. I'm not sure why, but I enjoyed the fight, was just a long-winded way of saying that.
It was interesting because Amanda seemed really happy with the fight, with the result. In fact, she said that this fight wasn't for the crowd. I don't care about the boos, essentially. It was for me because I wanted to prove to myself that I could go 5 rounds. And yet you wonder, given the criticism of the past 2 months, the criticism from Dana White, people accusing her of being scared and pulling out at the last minute, did this result do her any favors, or does her stock kind of go down a little? Essentially, did she need to do something spectacular to get the people back on her side?
She did, but that's easier said than done against Valentina Shevchenko, right? I mean, if she goes and rushes out there against a very dangerous kickboxer, she's probably not going to grind out a decision. Amanda did say after the fight that she came into the match with a foot injury. Mm-hmm. Also mentioned afterwards that she's had Hurricane Irma on her mind, so that could all play a factor as well. So given that she going to heal an injury, and given that, that I think we're all kind of glad this whole little episode's over with, maybe her best bet really is to just kind of lie low for a while and, just stay out of the limelight for a bit and come back fresh 6 months down the road.
Right. She also said that she's finally going to get her sinus issue fixed. She seemed very congested up there, and she said that's going to probably keep her out of action at least for the rest of this year, and she wants to focus on her girlfriend Nina Ansaroff, who fights in November against Angela Hill. Valentina Shevchenko, as you mentioned, very upset, and credit to her, she said, yeah, maybe I'll consider appealing it, but I know that these things never get changed, and that's true. These things never get changed. Do you think that she has a right to be upset? Did she do enough, in your opinion, to be in that conversation to make a strong case, or not really, in your opinion?
Look, it's not like this fight was like a blowout or anything. It was a close fight to me, but you can have a close and clear-cut fight. I think that, again, that she didn't, I don't know, maybe she was sitting back and waiting for Amanda Nunes to tire and hadn't counted on Nunes being so much smart with her energy in this fight than she has in previous matchups. It was a close fight. I don't think it's something that you can't protest a fight just because you don't like the decision. There has to be some type of negligence or something just grievously wrong. And just because I don't like the decision, she's probably best to just drop that.
She's one of the very best bantamweights in the world, yet she's a small bantamweight. She weighed in at around 133, I think it was, for this fight. Do you think she will fight next at 125? Should she fight next at 125?
I'd love to see it. I mean, look, I can understand why a competitor like her is going to be absolutely burning for a chance to fight Amanda again. But given the way this has all played out over the last few months, there's going to be no desire from the public or really for the UFC to make that match again. So with that in mind, if you can make 125, I mean, that sounds pretty incredible. I think it would be a great move on her part.
And look, let's be honest. I mean, at least in my opinion, speak for myself, not particularly blown away right now with the talent on The Ultimate Fighter. There is a possibility that Joanna Jacek moves up at some point. They have a history, maybe meet at 125. Certainly, in my opinion, not the last of Valentina Shevchenko in UFC title fights, even though it may be the last time she fights Amanda Nunes for the belt, because I've seen the fight twice now and it didn't go her way both times. I don't know if they're going to do it again. I certainly agree with you on that front. So that was the main event. Now Nunes retains the title. She wants to, take some time off, get her sinus issue cleared. You look at the 135-pound division, not a clear-cut number one contender who's just kind of there, but I feel Raquel Pennington, 4 in a row, coming off the win over Miesha Tate, is the number one contender, although she's lost some momentum. She hasn't fought since November. Do you have another person in mind, or do you agree with Pennington?
I mean, I like the idea of Pennington. At this point where it's been since last November, since she's fought, if Nunes is going to be out for a significant amount of time, she might want to take another fight just to stay active. I don't know. I mean, see how things play out with Holly and Cyborg, right? If that fight doesn't get made for some reason, Holly would be the biggest name out here, simply maybe not necessarily on the merits, but in terms of that would be far and away the biggest name opponent you can come up with for Nunes right now. And then other than that, I mean, look, I know Kaitlyn Viera looked good tonight, but she's not ready for a title shot yet.
Sure.
So,
and she said that herself, as did her coach, Andre Pederneiras. He said one more, and then let's talk title.
Yeah, 1 or maybe 2, but other than that, there's just no obvious answer right now.
Yeah, what a great performance by Kaitlyn Viera, who's a very big 135er. Says she has a lot of hard times making weight, but she certainly opened a lot of eyes with that win over Sarah McMahon. Let's talk about the rest of the card. Rafael dos Anjos with an impressive victory over Neil Magny, continues to look good at 170. That was a dominant, flawless performance, in my opinion. Would you like to see him now fight Tyron Woodley, or a Robbie Lawler to get to Tyron Woodley?
It was an amazing fight. Tyron's also going to be out for a while because of his shoulder injury. If it was up to me and we didn't have the injury factor, I'd still want to see Lawler against Woodley, but you would not have to twist my arm to see RDA against Lawler either.
So you'd rather see Lawler, Woodley, and then have RDA fight someone else to cement his place as the number one guy?
Yeah, because look, I mean, Tarek Safadine's an impressive win, Neil Magny's an impressive win, but those guys are just a cut below the very elite guys. So one more win and solidify things would really sell it for me.
Yeah, good though that we have a new player at 170 and especially one who was a champion at 155. I think he's been looking very good. I mean, 2 fights. What a difference from last year when he had the nightmare with the Conor injury and then, losing the title and then management issues, leaving King's MMA. A year can change a lot for a guy, and RDA is a perfect example of that. I want to ask you about Henry Cejudo with his victory over Wilson Hayes, his first victory in a little under 2 years, his first finish in 4 years, first finish in the UFC. I thought he needed that performance. I thought the flyweight division needed that performance. I don't think he's ready to be in the DJ talk, but I'd love to see him fight Sergio Pettis. They were supposed to fight at UFC 211. That, to me, is the perfect, maybe number one contender fight, especially for Pettis, who said he's not ready to fight DJ. Kudos to him for saying that. Do you like that idea? And what did you think of Cejudo's performance? I thought it was his best in the UFC.
I thought, you know what? I'm thinking like when we first heard that Cejudo was coming over from wrestling into MMA, this was exactly kind of like the fight you pictured, what you pictured he could become. When you saw a blue chip prospect of that caliber coming into the sport. I mean, just the combination. His striking is there. He's an elite level striker now. His wrestling was flawless, and just the aggressiveness with everything that he did. It was just an amazing performance, and it's not like he was beating a can out there tonight. Wilson Hayes is a great fighter. Yeah, I like that, especially if I heard correctly tonight, DJ said that if the Borg fight doesn't happen in the next month, he might just take some time off. Pettis and Cejudo sounds pretty great to me.
Yeah, I love that fight. I didn't see it on TV. You may have seen it because you were cage side. I was told by Cejudo's team that Pettis actually walked up right to the cage and was mean-mugging him after the victory. Did you see that?
Wasn't on my side of the cage.
Okay. I didn't even know that Pettis was here.
No,
They should
I
have
didn't
shown him
either.
on TV rather than show DJ. But yeah, supposedly that's a fight that he wants. That's a fight that Cejudo wants. So hopefully we get to see that fight. And I agree. I mean, we forget that Cejudo didn't have an amateur career, just kind of was thrown into it. Probably fought DJ a little too soon, given the amount of experience that he had. So it's nice to see him evolve. And even though he lost to Benavidez in December, I thought that was a very impressive striking performance from him, and maybe a fight that you can argue that he should have won. Very happy that he finally got a bonus in the UFC as well. Let me ask you about Jeremy Stephens. You talk about guys maybe having their best performances tonight in the UFC. Stephens has been around forever, and here he is coming in against Gilbert Melendez, postponing his wedding on a losing streak. You kind of feel like he plateaus, and then he puts on that performance. I was thoroughly impressed. Were you?
It was awesome. I mean, just from the jump, he looked like a man possessed, I mean, and we've always known that. We always knew, the thunder that he just has in his fist, but it was just. It seems like he's finally like a little older and a little wiser and a little smarter, and those leg kicks were just nasty. Maybe, I don't know, I feel like we've said this before about Jeremy Stephens because he's had some great nights. Sure. Maybe we're finally going to see that run once and for all. Maybe getting married, settling down a little bit is changing him. We'll see what happens when he comes out next time, but this was certainly a good start. And that was just tough to watch with Gilbert,
Sure. Maybe they could have stopped it earlier, right?
They could have stopped it earlier, but...
Or his corner, at least.
Or Nate Diaz isn't going to throw in the towel on Gilbert Melendez.
What do you make of Gilbert at this point? Hasn't won since 166. That's 4 in a row losses. Had the 1 year off due to the drug suspension. What do you make of him? I
don't know what you do from here, I mean, this is at the point where... things generally tend to kind of spiral downhill. At the same time, it's not, I mean, okay, this was kind of a bad loss, but his previous losses were close. I don't know. I don't want to tell Gilbert Melendez to retire, sure. But I don't see where it gets much better from here.
Maybe another fight at 145 to get his feet wet and maybe try to get back on track. But I agree, it's not our place to tell El Nino to retire. We were very high on Tyson Pedro yesterday. Lost for the first time tonight against Ilir Latifi. Was he exposed? What did you see out of him tonight? And on the flip side, let's give credit to Latifi as well.
Wonderful game plan by Latifi, almost a little master class in how an undersized veteran guy can teach the new kid the lesson. Look, Tyson, I think he only had like 16 minutes of total cage time in his career coming into this fight. So I think this is just simply a good, hopefully it just turns into a good learning experience for him that I wouldn't write him off. Maybe they pushed him a little bit too fast. But, I mean, I remember Stephen Thompson getting ragdolled by Matt Brown in his second UFC fight, I think it was. And, sometimes you just got to have a fight like that to understand how much further you need to go and, kind of learn that this isn't an easy game.
So we mentioned Viera. How about Rick Glenn completely dominating Gavin Tucker and derailing that hype train? Do you want to talk about the refereeing here? Okay.
Oh, that was embarrassing. Yeah. That was
reckless, egregious.
Reckless, egregious, just almost an atrocity.
Yeah. Especially in this city where Tim Hague died and they were under the microscope, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how you let a fight go on like that. I mean, if you saw towards the end of the third round, right, when Tucker finally got back to his feet, he basically turns away from him, stumbles, crashes into the cage face first. That obviously doesn't know where he is, and the ref just let him take more punishment right up to the horn. That was literally one of the worst displays of refereeing I've seen in 11 years covering mixed martial arts.
Yeah, and it's uncomfortable because Tucker is a young guy. He's undefeated. He's got a great career ahead of him. It was just completely unnecessary, And how one judge scored a 29-27 for Rick Glenn, I just have no idea. That to me is not as shocking, but befuddling.
Befuddling, and you gotta put this a little bit on on his corner as well. For like somewhere along the way, you have to think about throwing in the towel.
Right. So what I was getting at was we mentioned Viera, Rick Glenn with a great performance now at Team Alpha Male continues to reinvent themselves. Team Alpha Male does in Sacramento, led by Uriah Faber. Sarah Morris with a great victory, a flawless performance, I thought, and was very emotional backstage afterwards. She walked out to her late dad's favorite song, who passed away 6 years ago from brain cancer, still delivering mail, was hoping to get a bonus. She did not get a bonus tonight. Cajun Johnson, also another guy, been out for 2 years with a great finish, a knockout in the third round. Any other performance or two that you'd like to spotlight before we say goodnight?
You know what, let's just give a little shout out to Mitch Clark, who announced his retirement. You know, he's super tough dude, almost too tough for his own good, and he's a really quirky, funny dude on Twitter, kind of under the radar there. So, you know, obviously this fight didn't go the way he wanted to, but for him to get a huge ovation in his adopted hometown and put down the gloves, that was a pretty nice moment. So, you know, end it with a shout out to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, we didn't get to speak to him. He was transported to the local hospital. He lost to Alex White, but it was nice. He's always been kind of an emotional guy in the post-fight interviews, and didn't get the win, but it was nice to see him get that moment. Also want to spotlight, because I spotlighted him yesterday, Arjun Patel, who I thought had a phenomenal debut. Now 7-0, undefeated, first Indo-Canadian fighter in UFC history, first fighter from Indian background, Indian descent, to win in the UFC. And this is a guy who I think, once again, after seeing him, and it wasn't, you know, a perfect performance, but he did enough to win, beat Luis Henrique. This is a guy who can open many doors for the UFC. Didn't get the walkout with WWE champion Jinder Mahal, who was stranded due to Hurricane Irma, but and then in the you haven't seen it yet, but his post-fight scrum, I mean, this is a well-spoken guy who speaks with conviction. Actually reminds me a lot of Daniel Cormier, who he trains with at AK, the way he speaks. I think that they could have something really special here, not only in Canada, but in India as well. Big heavyweight who represents his country so well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he want to wear his turban out to the cage and wasn't allowed to do so? Yes. So, I mean, you know, you hope someone at WME headquarters was looking at the reaction he got, and there were, you know, the people super into it, well-spoken guy, potential to reach new markets. Let him wear his damn turban next time.
Yeah, a very unfortunate thing. What I was told was he asked a little late in the game, and Reebok kind of has an exclusive headgear deal with the UFC. This, to me, is everything that combat sports should be about. Be yourself, represent your country, connect with the people. And this is a guy with such a unique background, and we've never seen someone with that background in the UFC. What a great visual to have him come out wearing the turban, be successful, and represent. And then they kept showing the crowd, and there were people wearing turbans, holding the flag.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You want to connect to those people. You want to show that footage to India, to your TV, you know, partner there, and say, look who we have. Look at the doors we can open with this guy. Jinder Mahal walks out with the turban, right? Yep. And look what he's doing. So it just it seems like a backwards way of thinking, and everything that combat sports shouldn't be about. It should be about your individuality, not looking the same.
Hopefully they get it right next time.
Yes. Final thoughts, Edmonton. How about it? What a place, right? They came out. The fans were great. Other than in the main event, this arena, I feel like we need to give Edmonton a nod before we say goodnight. I mean, this card maybe wasn't the best, and of course there were some troubles along the way, but this whole city, I thought, really rolled out the red carpet, and in my opinion, this is the best arena, I think, that I've ever witnessed the UFC in.
Amazing, the beautiful, spectacular arena, and you know what, Ariel? I can say, you can't say this because you'll get accused of bias. Canadian fans are the best fans in MMA.
Yes.
They really are. They come out in force. They, you know, I'd like to see the UFC give Canada another major main event at some point, and not just take the approach of like, well, you know, we can just put on a card and they'll fill the arena up. But, you know, if we can kind of throw aside that main event the rest of the night, they were everything we expect from Canadian fans.
That means a lot coming from a Boston guy. They don't throw around compliments towards Canada very easily. But I agree. Toronto 206, that was kind of a weak card on paper, and that was a phenomenal crowd. Hopefully, you know, for Canada's sake, if GSP is successful, comes back here, and I really think that would reignite this market very much. They said afterwards, by the way, that they're planning on returning 3 more times to Canada in 2018. There's 1 more stop in 2017. That's Winnipeg for the big Fox show in December. All right, my man, fun covering with you. Great job. Thank you very much to Dave Doyle, our crew here, Esther Casey. Thank you very much to all of you for watching our coverage all week long from the YEG, the City of Champions, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. We are done saying goodnight from Edmonton. Back on Monday for the MMA Hour. We have a lot to talk about, so we'll see you then. But for now, good night from Edmonton.